Listen, I've been around the galaxy a few times, seen things that would make your antennae curl, but nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, prepared me for what happened when Zixthor decided to pick a fight with the new transfer student from Earth. You have to understand something about the Galactic Academy first. This place is supposed to be the pinnacle of higher learning, right? The best and brightest from every civilized world in the known universe, all crammed together in one massive station orbiting a neutron star. Very prestigious, very safe, very boring, usually. The Academy had this whole thing about controlled environments and optimal learning conditions. Everything was carefully regulated, gravity set to a comfortable 0.8 standard units, atmosphere perfectly balanced, temperature maintained at exactly 291 Kelvin, the kind of place where the most dangerous thing you'd encounter was a particularly scathing peer review, which is why nobody knew what to do when they accepted their first student from Earth. Her name was Rebecca Nakamura, and she walked into advanced xenobiology looking like she'd just finished a light jog, which, knowing what I know now, she probably had. According to YouTube analytics, 99.6% of viewers are not subscribed. That's a huge number. By subscribing the channel that is completely free, you'll help support the channel and never miss fresh content. Across the entire station. Just for fun, Professor Kilmara, a lovely Zenthari with approximately 14 PhD equivalents, introduced her to the class. Class, this is Rebecca, transferring to us from Sol's system. Please make her feel welcome. The collective response was a mixture of curious chirps, polite waves, and one very long, very pointed stare from Zixthor. Now Zixthor. Oh boy, where do I even start with this guy? He was a Krellian, which meant he stood about 8 feet tall, had muscles that looked like someone had glued boulders together, and came from a world with twice standard gravity. The Krellians were known throughout the galaxy as warriors, conquerors, the toughest species in known space, and Zixthor never let anyone forget it. He'd spent the last 2 academic cycles making sure everyone knew he was the strongest, fastest, most physically capable being in any room he entered. He'd challenge other students to feats of strength during break periods. He'd accidentally bump into people in the corridors just to watch them stumble. Real charming guy, you know the type. So naturally, when this small human girl walked in, standing maybe 5.5 feet tall and looking like a stiff breeze could knock her over, Zixthor's brain did what it always did. It saw opportunity. Rebecca took a seat near the front of the lecture hall, pulled out her data pad, and started reviewing the course material like a normal person. She had dark hair tied back in what I later learned was called a ponytail, and she was wearing the standard academy jumpsuit, which on her looked about 2 sizes too big. The lecture started normally enough. Professor Kilmara was discussing the various atmospheric compositions required by different species and how they'd evolved in response to their planetary conditions. Fascinating stuff, really, if you're into that sort of thing. Now, the professor said, her crystalline voice echoing through the hall, who can tell me why high oxygen environments are considered dangerous for most species? Rebecca's hand shot up. Yes, Rebecca? High oxygen concentration increases the risk of oxidative stress on cellular structures and makes fires burn more intensely. Most species evolved in lower oxygen environments for stability reasons. Excellent. And Earth's oxygen concentration is? 21%, Professor. A ripple of shock went through the classroom. 21% was insane. Most civilized worlds hovered around 8 to 12%. Anything above 15 was considered a fire hazard. Zixthor laughed, actually laughed, this deep booming sound that made the poor Flitzian in front of him flatten their feathers in distress. No wonder your species is so weak, he called out. Oxygen poisoning has probably damaged your evolutionary development. Rebecca turned in her seat, gave him a long look and said, Sorry, who are you? Oh, you could practically hear Zixthor's ego snap in half. I am Zixthor, champion of the Krellian combat circles, heir to the warrior lodge of Krell Prime, and the strongest being in this academy. He stood up because of course he did, looming over his desk. And you would do well to remember that, Deathworlder. See, that's the thing that made this whole situation even more delicious. Humans had been given the classification Deathworlder by the Galactic Council about 6 months before Rebecca arrived. Some exploration team had finally made it to Earth and done a proper survey, and they'd come back with reports that basically said, everything on this planet is trying to kill everything else. The humans are somehow thriving. Please advise. Earth, it turned out, was Category 12 on the Habitability Index. Category 12. Most Council species came from Category 3 to 5 worlds. Krell Prime, Zixthor's homeworld, was a Category 7, and that was considered impressively harsh. Earth had weather patterns that could level cities, tectonic activity that regularly reshaped continents, bacteria that could kill you in dozens of creative ways, plants that were poisonous, animals that were poisonous, insects that were poisonous and could also fly, and the humans just kinda dealt with it and called it Tuesday. But the classification was new enough that most students didn't really understand what it meant. They just knew it sounded scary and that this small girl definitely didn't look scary. Rebecca smiled at Zixthor. It wasn't a friendly smile. Deathworlder. Huh, is that supposed to be an insult? It's a statement of fact. Your world is a nightmare of evolutionary dead ends and environmental hazards. The fact that you survived to space age is a statistical anomaly. That's actually kind of sweet, thank you. Professor Kilmara tried to regain control of the class. Students, please. Let's return to the lecture. But Zixthor wasn't done. Oh no. He had an audience now and his pride had been pricked. I could break you in half without effort, human. Your bones are probably hollow like a Flitzian's. My bones are actually quite dense. Thanks. Calcium-based endoskeleton reinforced with collagen. Pretty standard Earth vertebrate stuff. Rebecca was still smiling, but there was something dangerous in her eyes now. Something that should have warned Zixthor to shut up and sit down. Did he take the warning? What do you think? After class, Zixthor announced, we will settle this. Physical challenge, standard academy protocols. We'll see how strong your Deathworld really made you. Sure, Rebecca said, turning back to face the professor. Sounds fun. The rest of the lecture was a wash. Nobody could pay attention. The news had already spread through the student network. Zixthor had challenged the Earth Girl. This was going to be either hilarious or tragic. Possibly both. When class ended, what felt like half the academy showed up at the gymnasium. The other half were watching through live feeds. This was the most excitement anyone had seen in months. The gym was set up for exactly these kinds of challenges. The academy actually encouraged controlled physical competitions between students, built character, fostered understanding, blah blah blah. Usually it was pretty boring. Someone would lift something heavy, someone else would run fast, everyone would clap politely and go back to studying. This was different. Zixthor stood in the center of the training floor, warming up by lifting weights that would have crushed most species into paste. He was playing to the crowd, roaring and flexing. Rebecca walked in wearing actual Earth athletic clothing. Shorts, a tank top, and these strange, flexible shoes she called sneakers. She looked even smaller in the huge gym, this tiny figure facing down a literal mountain of muscle. The gym's AI referee floated down. Standard physical challenge protocols. What parameters do you accept? Strength test first, Zixthor declared. Then speed, then endurance, unless the human wants to forfeit now and save herself the humiliation. Works for me, Rebecca said, stretching her arms over her head with complete unconcern. What are we lifting? The referee directed them to the press station. The weight was set to 500 standard units, which was roughly twice what even trained Krellians could manage. The record in the academy was held by Zixthor himself, 800 standard units. Zixthor went first, obviously. He approached the bar, gripped it with his massive hands and pressed it up with a roar that shook the walls. Held it for 3 seconds, lowered it with perfect control. The crowd went wild. Rebecca stepped up. She looked at the bar, looked at Zixthor. Is this supposed to be heavy? The laughter that rippled through the crowd wasn't kind. Even some of the other humans in attendance, yeah, there were a few others in different programs, looked uncomfortable. This was going to be a massacre. Rebecca gripped the bar. Her form was perfect, which surprised some of the athletes in the crowd. Then she pressed, and pressed, and kept pressing. The bar went up smoothly, no shaking, no struggle. She held it for 3 seconds, just like Zixthor. Then she lowered it. Huh, she said. Want to add more weight? The gym went dead silent. Zixthor's face went through several interesting color changes. More weight, he demanded. The referee complied. 900 standard units, a new academy record just for attempting it. Zixthor approached the bar. You could see the strain now. His muscles bulged, his skin darkened with effort. He got the bar up, barely. Held it for maybe 1 second. Dropped it with a crash that dented the floor. Rebecca's turn. She chalked her hands, which apparently was an earth thing, gripped the bar, and pressed it like she was picking up groceries. This is fun, she said, holding the weight steady. We have competitions like this on Earth. I was pretty good at them in high school. High school? Someone in the crowd whispered. What's high school? It's where they send their young to train, another voice answered. She's saying she did this as a child. Zixthor looked like he was about to have an aneurysm. Speed trial, now. The track was set up for 100-meter sprints. Standard academy record was 8.2 seconds, held by a Valorian whose species literally evolved for pursuit predation. Zixthor ran it in 9.1 seconds, which was impressive for his size. He wasn't built for speed, but he pushed himself hard enough that you could see the strain. Rebecca stepped up to the starting line, settled into a crouch that looked weird to everyone watching, her back leg bent, her front leg ready, hands on the ground. The starting signal fired. She exploded off the line. I'm not exaggerating when I say it looked like she'd been shot from a cannon. Her legs moved in a blur. Her arms pumped with mechanical precision. The crowd barely had time to process what they were seeing before she crossed the finish line. 6.8 seconds. The gym erupted. Not in cheers exactly, more like shocked exclamations in 40 different languages. The Valorian record holder was in the crowd, and their mandibles literally hung open. Rebecca jogged back, not even breathing hard. Good track. Nice surface tension. What's next? Endurance, Zixthor growled. He was not taking this well. Distance run, 50 kilometers, unless your oxygen-soaked brain can't handle math. 50 kilometers, got it. So like a light run? Cool. Here's the thing about humans that the rest of the galaxy was only just beginning to understand. They're persistence hunters. Back on Earth, before they invented civilization and weapons and all that, humans would hunt by literally just following their prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. They'd jog after animals for hours, sometimes days, until the prey just gave up and died. No other predator in the galaxy hunts like that. It's insane. It's inefficient. It requires a cooling system so advanced that humans have to constantly consume water just to maintain it. They leak fluids from their skin to regulate temperature, which is both disgusting and ingenious. The 50-kilometer course was set up on the gym's track. 200 laps. Normally, this kind of challenge would take species hours to complete, and most would have to stop for rest breaks. They started together. For the first few laps, Zixthor kept pace with Rebecca. He was determined to show his superiority, to prove that even if she was stronger and faster in short bursts, he had the warrior's endurance. By lap 20, he was breathing hard. By lap 50, he'd slowed to a jog. By lap 75, he was struggling. Rebecca looked like she was enjoying a pleasant afternoon run. She wasn't even sweating much. Her breathing was steady and controlled. Every time she lapped Zixthor, and she lapped him frequently, she'd give him a cheerful wave. By lap 120, Zixthor collapsed. Just straight up fell over, his muscles giving out, his respiratory system unable to keep up with the oxygen demand. Medical drones rushed to his aid. He'd be fine, just severely overexerted himself. His pride would hurt worse than his body. Rebecca kept running. The crowd had gone from shocked to awed to something approaching religious reverence. She completed all 200 laps in just under 2 hours and 15 minutes, then did 5 more laps as a cool down. When she finally stopped, she walked over to where Zixthor was being attended by medical staff. He looked up at her with something that might have been fear. "Good challenge," she said, offering her hand. "You pushed yourself hard. That's respectable." Zixthor stared at her hand like it might bite him. Eventually, he took it. She pulled him to his feet with ease. "What are you?" he whispered. Rebecca laughed. "I'm a human. From Earth. We've got slightly higher gravity than standard, way too much oxygen, weather that wants to murder us, animals that definitely want to murder us, plants that sometimes want to murder us, and bacteria that are absolutely trying to murder us every single day. We evolved to handle it. Your world sounds like a nightmare. It's home." She shrugged. "Look, you seem like you've been coasting on being the toughest guy around. That's fine, but maybe try actually training instead of just assuming you're the best. You've got good instincts and solid base strength. You could be really good if you worked at it." This was the part that really got people talking afterward. Rebecca Nakamura, who just absolutely demolished the Academy's reigning physical champion, was giving him training advice, and she was being genuine about it. Over the next few weeks, something weird happened. Zixthor actually took her advice. He started training with some of the other Deathworlders in the Academy, a small group from various high-gravity, high-danger worlds. Rebecca organized these training sessions, teaching techniques from Earth martial arts and conditioning programs. Turned out, humans had spent thousands of years figuring out how to make themselves even more dangerous than their environment already made them. They had entire systems of combat, hundreds of different styles, all focused on maximizing their already ridiculous physical advantages. The training group grew. Students from all over the Academy joined, wanting to learn from the Deathworlders, wanting to push themselves beyond what their safe, comfortable homeworlds had prepared them for. Zixthor became one of Rebecca's most dedicated students. His pride had taken a hit, sure, but he was also a warrior at heart, and warriors respect strength. He learned something that day in the gym, something his culture had forgotten in their generations of dominance. There's always someone stronger, and the wise warrior learns from them. The really funny part? Rebecca wasn't even particularly exceptional by Earth standards. She'd been a decent athlete in high school, played some sports, kept in shape. She was fit, sure, but she wasn't an Olympic champion or a special forces soldier or anything like that. She was just a normal human who wanted to study xenobiology. When that information got out, when people realized that Rebecca was basically average for a Deathworlder, the galaxy had a collective moment of re-evaluation. Recruitment offers started pouring in to Earth. Military contracts, security positions, exploration teams, all wanting humans. The Galactic Council suddenly got very interested in establishing strong diplomatic relations with this planet of super soldiers who thought they were normal. As for our story, well, it became legend at the Academy. The day Zixthor challenged the Earth Girl was told and retold, each version getting more elaborate. Some versions had Rebecca lifting a shuttle. Others had her running so fast she broke the sound barrier in the gym. The truth was impressive enough without embellishment, but you know how stories go. Rebecca and Zixthor actually became friends. Good friends. He'd walk with her between classes, and the students who used to fear him started to see a different side. She brought out something in him that wasn't about dominance or proving superiority. She showed him that strength without wisdom was just violence, and that real power came from knowing when to fight and when to teach. The xenobiology class became the most popular course in the Academy. Everyone wanted to study under Professor Kilmara now, hoping to interact with the human girl who'd rewritten the social hierarchy in a single afternoon. Rebecca mostly just found this amusing. She'd come to learn, and she was learning. The fact that she'd accidentally started a fitness revolution was just a fun side effect. Professor Kilmara later told me that Rebecca's entrance essay for the academy had included a line about wanting to promote greater understanding between species through shared scientific inquiry, and maybe join the track team if there is one. Mission accomplished, I'd say. The broader implications of that challenge took years to fully manifest. Earth's integration into the galactic community accelerated rapidly. Humans started appearing in all sorts of positions throughout Council space. They became sought-after employees in any field requiring physical resilience: deep space exploration, hostile environment research, emergency response, and yes, security and military roles. But they also brought something else: this peculiar Earth concept they called sports. Competitive physical activities done not for survival or dominance, but for fun and personal improvement. The idea that you could push yourself to the limit just to see if you could, not because you were trying to defeat an enemy. It was revolutionary. The Galactic Games, which had previously been a fairly boring affair of careful, controlled competitions, got an Earth delegation in their first eligible year. The humans proceeded to break roughly 60% of the existing records and introduced new events that other species had never even considered. Obstacle courses, triathlons, something called ultimate frisbee that nobody understood but everyone agreed was incredibly entertaining to watch. Zixthor competed in the games 3 years after his challenge with Rebecca. He won silver in the heavyweight strength category, losing only to a Terran powerlifter who apologized profusely for beating him and then offered to buy him dinner. They're still friends, I'm told. Rebecca graduated top of her class in xenobiology and went on to join an exploration team surveying Category 9 and 10 worlds, places that were too dangerous for most species to even visit. Her team discovered 17 new forms of extremophile life and published papers that revolutionized our understanding of evolutionary adaptation. She still trains every day, though. That's just what humans do. They push themselves constantly, always trying to be better than they were yesterday. It's exhausting just watching them, honestly. The last time I saw Rebecca, she was visiting the academy as a guest lecturer. She'd just come back from a 3-year expedition to a world with 6 times standard gravity and an atmosphere that would dissolve most metals. She looked exactly the same as she had that first day in class, maybe a bit more sun-weathered, walking into the lecture hall like she owned it. Zixthor was there too, now teaching combat theory and physical conditioning. When Rebecca walked in, he stood and bowed in the Krellian style, a gesture of profound respect between warriors. She laughed and hugged him instead, because humans are weird about physical contact and haven't quite grasped that most species find it alarming. Still trying to kill yourself on death planets? Zixthor asked. Still teaching people how not to embarrass themselves in challenges? Rebecca countered. I learned from the best. And that, more than anything else that happened that day in the gym, is what I think about when I consider the impact of humanity joining the galactic community. They didn't just bring strength or speed or ridiculous endurance. They brought this idea that you could take the absolute worst beating, admit defeat, and come back stronger. That there was no shame in losing, only in not learning from it. Zixthor had thought he was the strongest being in the academy. He was wrong, but being wrong taught him more than being right ever had. And that lesson, spread through thousands of students over years, changed the entire culture of the Galactic Academy. These days, you'll find mixed species training groups all over the station. Humans teaching aliens their exercise techniques. Aliens teaching humans their meditation practices and philosophy. It's beautiful, really, in a sweaty, exhausting sort of way. The gym where it all happened has a plaque now. Site of the first human challenge. They updated the equipment, too. The weight press goes up to 3,000 standard units now. A human Marine visiting from the Sol System Defense Fleet maxed it out last year just warming up. They're ordering heavier weights. Sometimes I walk past that gym and watch the current students training. I see a Krellian helping a human with their form, a Flitzian racing a Valorian, both of them trying to beat Rebecca's record from years ago, a mixed group doing something the humans call CrossFit that looks like elaborate torture but everyone seems to enjoy. And I think about that day when Zixthor stood up in xenobiology class and challenged what he thought was a weak little girl from a backwater planet. Best decision he ever made, honestly. Worst decision he ever made, probably, in terms of his ego. But mostly I think about Rebecca's face when she held that weight, when she finished that run, when she offered her hand to Zixthor and said, "Good challenge." She wasn't gloating, wasn't cruel. She was just being human, which meant she was being friendly and competitive and helpful all at once, because apparently on Earth you can be all those things simultaneously without your brain exploding from the contradiction. The galaxy is a bigger place than we thought. Not geographically, we had that mapped fairly well, but bigger in terms of possibilities, in terms of what we thought was the limit of biological capability. Earth sits out there in its weird, high-oxygen danger zone, cranking out beings who consider Category 12 planets home and think running for hours is relaxing. And Rebecca Nakamura, average human student, accidentally taught us that our understanding of strength was pitifully limited. She's probably on some nightmare planet right now, studying microbes that eat radiation, jogging up a mountain just because it's there, planning her next research paper, and not thinking at all about the legend she created. That's the most human thing of all, really. They do the impossible, shrug, and move on to the next challenge. Makes you wonder what else we've underestimated about the universe, doesn't it? Retry.